Welcome, and thank you for being here. Find a comfortable position and allow yourself to settle. There is nothing you need to do right now, just this moment, this quiet time that belongs entirely to you. Let your body begin to release, your shoulders drop, your jaw relax, your breathing slow, naturally, effortlessly. For the next few hours, you're going to explore something remarkable, the body's hidden system for creating calm. A system you have never had to think about and may never have heard described quite this way. That has been tending to you your entire life. The nervous system, the quiet intelligence running through the center of you, connecting brain to body, body to breath, breath to the deepest sense of safety you have ever felt. You don't need to concentrate, you don't need to remember, you don't even need to stay awake. Let the words wash over you like gentle waves. Your body is listening, even when you slip into sleep. So breathe, relax, and let yourself be carried into the hidden world of your own calm. Beginning now with the body that is always listening. Somewhere in this moment, there is a quiet process already underway. Not something you are doing, but something happening inside you, without your direction, without your effort. The nervous system is always scanning, reading the world around you and the world within you. At the same time, it is asking a question it never stops asking. Is this moment safe? Or does something here require a response? It is not an anxious question. It is simply the system doing its job, tending to the body it was built to protect. And right now, the answer it is receiving is yes, this moment is safe. The autonomic nervous system governs the body's most essential functions: the beating of the heart, the expansion of the lungs, the slow movement of digestion. It exists in two broad modes. One oriented toward activation and meeting the demands of the world. The other oriented toward recovery, toward the gentle work of restoring what the active hours spent. These two modes are not in competition. They are partners, each necessary, each with its time. And right now, in the stillness and the quiet, the body is being invited into recovery. A researcher named Stephen Porges described something called polyvagal theory, a map of the nervous system with 3 layers of response. The outermost layer governs connection and ease, the soft face and open voice of feeling safe with others. Beneath that, an older layer, ready to mobilize when something must be faced or fled. And deeper still, an ancient layer, reserved for moments of overwhelming threat, a shutting down, a going very still. Most ordinary moments move gently between the first two, and what allows that movement to be graceful is the health of one long and quietly remarkable nerve. The vagus nerve begins deep in the brainstem, threading through the neck, curving around the heart and lungs, traveling all the way into the soft terrain of the abdomen. It sends branches to the face, the voice, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines. A living cable of extraordinary reach, in communication with more of the body than almost any other single structure in the nervous system. And it has been there inside you your entire life, doing this quiet and essential work. You may have noticed, in your own experience, that the body sometimes seems to know things before the mind does. A tension appearing in the shoulders before any conscious awareness of stress. A settling in the chest when stepping into a room that simply feels safe. This is the body listening, registering the world through pathways that do not require conscious participation. Even when the thinking mind is completely absorbed in a task or a worry, the body is still listening, still scanning, still doing its patient work. And in this moment, the body is listening to something very quiet, the absence of any threat. Calm is not simply a feeling that moves across the surface of the mind. It is not the absence of difficult thoughts, not merely a mood that arrives and eventually passes. True calm is a whole body state, the heart at its resting rhythm, the breath slow and deep, the muscles releasing their background tension, every system settling into something more restorative. And this state is available to the body. It is something the body already knows how to do. Emotional regulation, the ability to move through difficulty without being overwhelmed, to return to steadiness after something hard. This capacity is not purely a mental skill. It is deeply embodied, rooted in the physical state of the nervous system. A body that can move between activation and ease with some fluency is better able to meet difficulty without fragmenting, better able to feel something fully without being swept away. Emotional regulation lives not just in the thinking mind, but in the muscles and the breath and the steady rhythm of the heart. Much of what seems like a purely mental event, a wave of anxiety, an unexpected sense of ease, a heaviness with no clear source, has its roots in something physical, in the state of the body at that moment, in signals moving upward through pathways like the vagus nerve. Mind and body are not two things in conversation. They are one thing, expressed in two different registers. The nervous system is not working against you. Every response it has ever generated, every moment of tension or alarm or shutdown, was an attempt to protect something it cares deeply about. These responses may not always match the situation as it actually is, but they are always acts of protection, always the system trying to keep the body safe. There is nothing to correct in the system, only conditions to offer it, conditions under which it can find its own way toward ease. If calm is really the science of anything, it is the science of flexibility, not the absence of activation, not a permanent state that never wavers, but the capacity to move, to stretch toward what a moment requires, and then to find the way back. A nervous system that is flexible can be moved by the world without becoming stuck in any one state. It can rise to meet what needs meeting, and when that moment passes, it can descend again, back toward its resting place. Flexibility, not flatness. Responsiveness, not control. That is what a healthy nervous system looks like from the inside. There is nothing you need to remember from any of this. Just let the words drift past, like slow clouds moving across a still sky. The body already understands what has been said here, in a language that does not require words. And somewhere beneath awareness, the nervous system is already responding, finding the signals of safety it has been looking for, and beginning, very gently, to let go. There is a conversation happening inside you right now. Not a conversation in words, not one that requires any participation from the thinking mind. A continuous, quiet exchange of signals, moving between the body and the brain, shaping every moment of felt experience. This conversation has been happening your entire life, mostly beneath your awareness, and it is happening right now as you lie still, as the quiet settles around you. There is a word for the body's awareness of its own internal signals: interoception. It refers to the ongoing sense the nervous system maintains of what is happening inside. The rhythm of the heart, the state of the gut, the quality of the breath. This sense operates below ordinary attention, quietly informing the brain about the inner landscape, moment by moment, without announcement. And yet it shapes everything: the quality of mood, the sense of ease or unease, the texture of each passing hour. You may notice, even now, some faint signal from within, a heaviness in the limbs, a softness in the belly, the particular quality of the breath in this moment. You may have noticed, in moments of strong feeling, that the emotions seem to arrive somewhere in the body first, before the mind had named it, before any thought had formed. A tightness in the chest before the word anxiety, a warmth spreading through the body before the word joy. Feelings are not purely mental events. They are physical ones first, rising from the body, traveling upward, becoming emotion somewhere along the way. And in this moment, the sensation traveling upward is one of stillness, of settling, of a body beginning to release what the day required of it. Deep within the brain there is a region called the insula. It receives the constant stream of signals rising from the body and interprets them, translating the raw data of interoception, the pulse rate, the tension in the muscles, the state of the gut, into the felt sense of how things are right now. When the insula is reading signals of ease, the moment feels different than when it is reading signals of strain. Not because anything outside has changed, but because the internal report has shifted. And right now, the report is one of quiet, of a body moving steadily toward rest. When a person becomes familiar with their own body cues, when they begin to recognize the early signals of stress before they have fully arrived, regulation can begin sooner. The nervous system offered calming signals earlier in the cycle, before the tension has built, before anxiety has gathered momentum, before the body has moved far from its resting place. The body is always offering these early signals: a slight constriction in the throat, a barely perceptible shift in the breath, a faint tightening somewhere in the torso. Learning to notice them gently, without alarm, is one of the quieter forms of care available to any person. Internal awareness is not a fixed quality, not something a person either has or does not have. It is a capacity, and like any capacity, it grows through patient, repeated attention. Not through effort or analysis, but through simple noticing, returning attention to the inner landscape again and again. Without judgment, without the need to change what is found there, simply observing, the way one might observe weather moving across a sky. And what was once a vague and undifferentiated sense of unease begins to have shape, texture, location, something that can be recognized and therefore met. People who sense their body's signals with some clarity often respond to difficulty more effectively. Not because they feel less, but because they feel more accurately. A clear signal can be responded to. An unclear one tends to simply amplify. This accuracy is not about control. It is about relationship. The thinking mind and the body in closer communication, each informing the other with more precision. And from that closer relationship, a steadier way of moving through the world tends to emerge. The body tells the story of stress through tension patterns. The shoulders that rise and do not fully descend, the jaw that holds its clench through hours of concentration, the belly that stays slightly contracted long after the stressful moment has passed. These patterns are not flaws, they are records, the body's way of storing what the day asked of it. You may notice right now, without searching for anything in particular, whether there is any held tension somewhere in the body. Not to fix it, just to notice it is there. Breath has its own way of carrying the news of the inner state. When stress is present, even low-level stress that has not been consciously registered, the breath tends to become shallower, slightly faster, sitting higher in the chest. Simply bringing attention to the breath, noticing its depth and pace without trying to alter it, can reveal what the body has been quietly holding. The breath as a window, showing the state of the nervous system in real time, available to be read whenever attention turns toward it. There is something quietly powerful in the simple act of noticing a stress response. Not analyzing it, not trying to eliminate it, simply observing. There is tension here. Something in the body has responded to something. This noticing is not passive. It is already a form of regulation. When awareness turns toward a stress response, something shifts. The response is no longer running entirely on its own. It has been seen, and in being seen, it begins to lose some of its grip. Awareness itself is already a softening. Somatic practices, the many forms of body-based awareness work, share a common beginning point. They do not begin with fixing, they begin with noticing. The simple, patient turning of attention toward what is actually present in the body, without agenda, without the need to make it different from what it is. This beginning is not a preliminary step before the real work starts. It is the work. The noticing itself creates the conditions in which ease becomes possible, not by forcing anything, but by bringing the body's experience into the light of awareness, where it can be held gently and where, without any additional effort, it very often begins to ease. There is nothing you need to do with any of this now. The body has already been heard tonight, simply by resting here, simply by allowing these words to move through you. The hidden conversation continues, as it always does, carrying its quiet signals between body and brain. And tonight, those signals are turning towards something softer, something slower, something that needs no name, only the gentle permission to arrive. There is a quality to stress that is worth understanding gently. Not as something to be feared or fought, but simply as a pattern, one the body knows well and one that can be recognized. Because what stress does to the system is not random. It follows a logic, and understanding that logic, even softly, even just as words drifting past in the dark, can itself be a kind of relief. When stress arises, the body responds, and that response changes the signals traveling through the nervous system. Those change signals alter how the brain perceives the next moment, which can generate more stress, which changes the signals further. This is the feedback loop, stress shaping perception, perception generating more stress, the two turning together like slow gears. It is not a flaw in the system. It is the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, amplifying its response to what it has identified as a threat. But it is useful to know the loop exists, because a loop can be interrupted gently from almost any point along its path. And right now, simply lying still, simply breathing, is already one form of interruption. When stress persists over time, something begins to shift in how the body experiences itself. Sensations that would otherwise feel neutral begin to carry a different quality. A background hum of vigilance colors everything they touch. A heartbeat that quickens slightly in a rested system might pass without notice. In a chronically stressed one, it may register as something to be concerned about. The threshold shifts. The nervous system becomes more sensitive, more inclined to interpret ambiguous signals as warnings. This is not imagination. It is a genuine change in how the body's internal reports are being read. The same signal, arriving in a different internal climate, means something different. And knowing this, you may notice that the body you are resting in tonight is being offered a different climate, one in which signals can arrive and simply pass. Stress leaves traces in the body, not just in moments of acute pressure, but in the patterns that persist long after the pressure has eased. The breath that never quite returned to its full depth, the shoulders that forgot how to fully descend, the sleep that remained lighter than it once was. A reactivity that became the new normal, a startle response that stays closer to the surface than it used to. These are the residues of stress, the body still configured for demands that have already passed. Still holding a posture of readiness, because no clear signal arrived to say the readiness was no longer needed. You may recognize some of these patterns in yourself, not as failures, but simply as information, as the body telling its story. There is a particular quality that arrives when the body has been tired for a long time. A tired brain is a more reactive brain. The regions involved in calm, considered response become less available, and the regions involved in threat detection move closer to the surface. Small things feel larger. Mild frustrations carry more weight. The buffer between stimulus and response becomes thinner. This is not a character failing. It is simple physiology. A brain running low on the resources it needs to regulate itself. And it is one of the reasons that rest, genuine rest, is not a luxury, but a form of maintenance. The brain restored by sleep is a different instrument than the one depleted by its absence. Sleep and stress exist in a relationship that moves in both directions. Stress disrupts sleep, and disrupted sleep amplifies stress responses, making the nervous system more reactive, less able to regulate itself through the following day, which can make the next night harder and the next day more difficult still. This cycle is familiar to many people, lying in the dark with a mind that will not quiet, exhausted and yet unable to descend into rest. But cycles can be interrupted, and the interruption can begin anywhere, including here, including now, with the body simply resting and the breath simply slowing. The sympathetic nervous system, the one most associated with stress and activation, is not the enemy. It is the system that allows a person to act, to respond, to meet the demands of a difficult moment with energy and focus. Without it, nothing urgent could be met, no challenge could be risen to, no moment of genuine effort would be possible. It is a profound gift, the body's capacity to mobilize, to gather its resources and direct them toward what the moment requires. The difficulty arises not from the system itself, but from remaining in its activated state long after the demanding moment has passed. The goal has never been to eliminate activation, only to be able to return from it. What a healthy nervous system looks like is not a system permanently at rest. It is a system that moves, that can travel toward activation when the moment calls for it, and back toward ease when it does not. Without getting stuck in either place for longer than the situation requires. This fluid movement is what researchers sometimes call good regulation, and it is less about achieving calm than about maintaining range. The capacity to feel fully, to respond genuinely, and to return. A river with good flow is not a still pond. It moves, it responds to its terrain, and it finds its level again. Regulation is sometimes misunderstood as a kind of emotional flattening, as though the goal were to feel less, to dampen the highs and raise the lows into something uniform and unremarkable. But this is not what regulation means, and it is not what a well-functioning nervous system produces. A regulated system can feel deeply, can experience joy fully, can be moved by what is moving, can respond to what is genuinely difficult with genuine feeling. What it does not do is remain trapped in any one of those states longer than the situation calls for. Regulation is not numbness, it is range. It is the freedom to feel without being held indefinitely by what is felt. There is a phrase that appears in the literature on nervous system health, returning to baseline. baseline is not a perfect state. It is simply the resting place the system returns to when nothing particular is demanding its attention. After activation, after strong emotion, after the demands of a long day, the nervous system has its own momentum toward baseline, its own quiet tendency to seek equilibrium. A reset does not require dramatic intervention. It requires conditions: stillness, darkness, the slowing of breath, the absence of demand, time. These are the conditions the nervous system recognizes as permission to return. And they are the conditions present right now, in this room, in this quiet, in this body that is already, without being asked, beginning to find its way back. There is nothing you need to remember from any of this. Just let the words drift past like slow breath, arriving and releasing, leaving nothing behind that needs to be held. The system is already moving toward its resting place. Gently, reliably, the way it always has. And tonight, it has everything it needs to find its way there. Of course, let me trim and resubmit, aiming for around 1,300 words, somewhere beneath the thinking mind, beneath the chest and the beating heart. There is another intelligence at work. Quiet, patient, largely invisible to conscious awareness, and connected to the brain above it by a network of signals so constant and intricate that scientists have given it its own name: the gut-brain axis. Not a metaphor, but a real, documented, bidirectional communication network. Signals traveling downward from brain to gut and upward from gut to brain, continuously shaping mood and digestion and the felt quality of each moment. This conversation has been happening inside you your entire life, and it is happening right now as the body settles, as the night deepens around you. You may have noticed at some point that how you feel emotionally and how your digestion feels tend to move together. A difficult day and a restless stomach, a morning of ease and a gut that feels settled and unhurried. This is not coincidence, it is the axis doing what it was designed to do. Mood influences digestion, and digestion influences mood. The relationship runs in both directions with equal fluency. A gut that is calm sends signals upward that contribute to emotional steadiness. And a mind at ease sends signals downward that allow the digestive system to do its work without interference. Each one tending the other in a quiet loop of mutual influence. Within the gut, there is an entire ecosystem of microorganisms, trillions of them, living in balance, or sometimes out of it. These microbes do far more than assist with digestion. They produce chemical compounds that reach the brain. Some influence the production of neurotransmitters, including serotonin, much of which is produced not in the brain, but in the gut. The balance of this community plays a role in how the stress response is calibrated, in how reactive or how steady the nervous system tends to be. And the conditions that support the microbiome, rest, ease, unhurried nourishment, are conditions the body is being offered right now. The digestive system contains something remarkable, its own nervous system, called the enteric nervous system, running the entire length of the digestive tract, containing hundreds of millions of nerve cells. It can sense, process, and respond to its environment independently, without waiting for instructions from the brain above. This is why it is sometimes called the second brain, not because it thinks as the mind thinks, but because it perceives and responds and communicates with a sophistication that surprised researchers when it was first understood. And the vagus nerve is the primary road between these two centers, the main channel through which the second brain speaks to the first. When stress arrives, the digestive system is among the first to feel it. The rhythmic movement that carries food through the digestive tract changes under stress, sometimes speeding, sometimes slowing, losing its natural, unhurried pace. Appetite shifts too, becoming either urgent and unregulated or disappearing almost entirely. These are not separate symptoms. They are the stress response moving through the body as a whole. The gut participating in the same alarm the heart and lungs and muscles are all responding to. And as the body moves toward calm, these systems settle together. The brain and gut speak to each other through more than one pathway. There are neural pathways like the vagus nerve, carrying signals at the speed of electricity. And there are immune pathways, slower, chemical, carried through the bloodstream. Inflammation in the gut, even low-level inflammation that produces no obvious symptoms, can alter these signals in ways that affect mood, sleep, and the general sense of well-being. The brain receives these reports and adjusts accordingly, the inner weather shifting in response to conditions it may never consciously register. Emotional stress and digestive discomfort have a long history of traveling together. Grief that sits in the stomach, anxiety that tightens the gut, excitement that flutters somewhere low and central. These are not figures of speech. They are accurate descriptions of real physiological events. The gut is one of the places where emotion is genuinely felt, not just metaphorically located. And a gut that is settling, as this one is beginning to, in the quiet of this night, carries that settling upward into the emotional landscape above it. The microbiome's influence on mood works in part through inflammation. Certain microbial imbalances promote a low level of systemic inflammation, and that inflammation reaches the brain, where it can dampen mood, disrupt sleep, and heighten the sensitivity of the stress response. When the microbial community is balanced, this inflammatory signal quiets, and something in the emotional baseline steadies, not dramatically, but in the way a room becomes easier to inhabit when a persistent low noise finally stops. The gut is not the only organ in constant conversation with the brain. The heart sends signals upward with every beat. The lungs report the rhythm of each breath. The muscles carry information about tension and ease. All of these organs are speaking all of the time, and the brain is listening to all of them at once. Right now, that stream is carrying a consistent message. The heart is slowing. The breath is easy. The gut is settling. The muscles are releasing. Everything pointing in the same quiet direction. When healing is needed, it rarely happens in isolation. The gut cannot fully settle while the nervous system remains alarmed. The nervous system cannot fully ease while the gut is inflamed. They move together towards difficulty and toward recovery. What supports one tends to support all of them. Rest, stillness, the slowing of breath, the absence of demand. These are not targeted interventions for any one system. They are conditions the whole body recognizes as permission to begin returning toward ease. There is nothing you need to do with any of this now. Just let the words move through you, the way signals move along those quiet interior pathways. Carrying nothing that needs to be held, asking nothing that needs to be given. The whole system is listening tonight, and what it is hearing is safe. And from that single word, everything else follows. Naturally, without any help from you at all. The nervous system is a social organ, not just a system for managing the body's internal functions, but one that is exquisitely tuned to the presence of other people. Constantly reading the faces and voices and postures of those nearby, asking the same question it asks of everything. Is this safe, or does something here require a response? This social scanning happens automatically, beneath awareness, faster than any conscious assessment could occur. And the answers it finds shape the body's state just as surely as any internal signal does. The nervous system has been doing this since the very beginning, reading the world through other people, long before it had any other way of knowing whether it was safe. There is something the nervous system does when it encounters a kind voice or a safe face. Something that happens before any conscious recognition of kindness or safety has formed. The muscles around the middle ear adjust, tuning toward the frequencies of human speech. The face softens slightly, the breath eases. Heart rate shifts. The shoulders release a fraction of their held tension. All of this before a single word has been processed, before the thinking mind has formed any opinion about what it is hearing. A kind voice reaches the nervous system before it reaches the mind, and the body responds accordingly. You may notice, even now, that something in the quality of these words, their pace and tone, is being received somewhere below thought. Safety is not only a thought or a feeling, it is a biological state. When the nervous system registers safety, real safety, communicated through the signals it trusts, something changes in the chemistry of the body. Stress hormones begin to ease. The immune system settles into its maintenance work. Digestion resumes its natural rhythm. The heart finds a slower and more variable beat. These are not metaphors for feeling better. They are measurable physiological shifts, the body moving into a genuinely different state. Safety is not a luxury the body experiences when conditions are perfect. It is a biological need, as real and as foundational as warmth or nourishment. And when it is present, when the nervous system truly registers it, the whole system exhales. Safety cues do not have to come from the outside world. They can arise from within the body itself, from the rhythm of a slow breath, the softness of a relaxed belly, the steadiness of a heartbeat that has found its resting pace. When the body generates these internal signals of ease, the nervous system receives them as evidence and updates its assessment of the moment accordingly. This is one of the reasons that practices directed at the body, slow breathing, gentle movement, releasing held tension in the muscles, can shift the felt sense of safety even when nothing in the external environment has changed. The body is capable of offering itself the evidence it needs, and the nervous system is capable of trusting it. There is a simple practice, so quiet it barely seems like a practice at all, called orientation, the slow, gentle turning of attention to the space around you. When the eyes move softly around a room, not scanning for threat, but simply taking in what is there, the edges of things, the quality of the light, the stillness of familiar objects. The nervous system receives this as information. The visual field is calm. Nothing is moving toward me. The environment is known. And something in the threat forecast updates. The background hum of vigilance eases slightly, the body receiving permission to stand down from its watching. Even in the dark, even with eyes closed, the simple awareness of the room around you, its dimensions and its quiet, can carry this same settling quality. When the brain knows where it is, the body tends to relax. Disorientation is itself a mild stressor, the nervous system less certain of the environment, less able to assess what the current moment holds. But when the body is grounded in time and place, when it knows the hour, the room, the familiar weight of the surface beneath it, the nervous system can release some of its environmental monitoring, can trust that the surroundings are known, and turn its attention inward, toward rest. You are here, in this room, in this night, and that knowing is itself a form of safety. Touch is one of the most direct languages the nervous system understands. The pressure of a weighted blanket, the feeling of the body against the surface beneath it, the warmth of one hand resting against the other. These physical sensations carry signals directly into the nervous system, signals that speak of presence, of being contained, of existing in a particular place at a particular moment. Grounding through touch or pressure can anchor the nervous system in the present, gently interrupting the drift toward worry or abstraction, returning attention to the simple, solid fact of the body right now. The weight of the body against the bed, the texture of what surrounds you, these are not small things. They are biological anchors. Gentle self-touch carries its own quieting quality. A hand resting on the chest, fingers against the throat, a palm on the belly. These simple gestures activate the same nerve pathways involved in safe touch from another person. The nervous system does not always distinguish the source. It simply registers warmth, pressure, presence, and responds with a small but real shift toward ease. Awareness increases. The body becomes more present to itself, more grounded in the immediate sensation of being here. And in that presence, the abstraction of worry becomes a little harder to sustain. The body trusts what it has experienced more than what it has been told. Explaining safety to a nervous system that has not felt it rarely produces the shift that feeling it does. But repetition, the patient, consistent returning to conditions of ease, begins to build something the nervous system recognizes. A pattern it starts to anticipate, a state it begins to move toward more readily, because it has been here before and it remembers. Not as a thought, but as a bodily knowing, accumulated slowly through experience rather than instruction. This is what is being built right now, in the quiet repetition of nights like this one. The nervous system learning, through the patient language of sensation and stillness, that this is what safe feels like, and that it is allowed to rest here. There is nothing you need to remember from any of this. Just let the words drift past, like slow breath moving through a quiet room. The body already knows what to do with what it has been given. It is already doing it, settling, softening, finding its way toward the rest that has been waiting patiently all day. Just for this moment, just for this breath, just for right now. Breath is extraordinary in a way that is easy to overlook, because it is always there and always happening, requiring nothing from the conscious mind to continue. And yet it is also available to be shaped, to be gently guided in a way that almost no other automatic function of the body can be. The heart beats without permission. Digestion moves without instruction. The pupils adjust to light without any conscious involvement. But the breath can be both left alone and deliberately influenced at the same time. It exists in two worlds at once, the automatic and the intentional. And that overlap is what makes it so quietly powerful. Because it means there is always a door available, always a way to reach the nervous system directly through something as simple and as close as the next breath. The exhale carries particular weight in the relationship between breath and the nervous system. When the exhale is extended, made longer and slower than the inhale, the vagus nerve receives a signal it interprets as ease. Parasympathetic activity increases, the calming branch of the nervous system becoming more influential, more present in the body's ongoing conversation with itself. This is not a dramatic shift. It is a gentle one, a nudge rather than a push. But nudges accumulate, and over the course of many slow exhales, the body begins to move in a quieter direction. You may notice even now, without trying to change anything, that allowing the exhale to be a little longer than it wants to be produces something in the body. A small yielding, a softening somewhere, the body responding to its own signal of release. There is something that happens to urgency when the breath slows. Not that the things which felt urgent disappear, but they begin to lose some of their immediacy, their quality of needing to be addressed right now. The nervous system uses the pace of the breath as one of its primary cues about the nature of the current moment. A fast breath says something is happening that requires speed. A slow breath says the moment is one that can be inhabited without rushing. When the breath slows, the nervous system updates its reading of the moment, and the sense of urgency that so often accompanies a busy or stressed state begins to ease. Not because anything outside has changed, but because the body's internal report has shifted. Slow breathing reaches the heart directly. As the breath slows, heart rate tends to follow, finding a more measured and even rhythm. And a slower heart rate is itself a signal, received by the brain as evidence that the body is not in a state of urgency, that the current moment does not require the elevated resources of alarm. Heart and breath, moving together toward quiet, each one supporting the shift the other is making. Neither one leading, both arriving at the same place, a body that is measurably, physically, calmer than it was a few breaths ago. The sigh is one of the body's most elegant built-in tools. It happens spontaneously, many times a day, often without being noticed. A slightly deeper inhale followed by a long, releasing exhale. The body taking a moment to reset its respiratory rhythm, to clear what has accumulated in the small air sacs of the lungs. Sighing is a natural micro-reset, the nervous system briefly interrupting its current pattern and returning to something more open, more spacious. You may find one arising now, without any intention, simply the body taking what it needs. And if it does, there is nothing to do but allow it, and notice the small clearing it leaves in its wake. Yawning carries its own quiet intelligence. Often dismissed as a sign of boredom or fatigue, it is actually a sophisticated transition signal, the nervous system moving between states. The stretch of the jaw, the deep involuntary inhale, the long release, all of it activating vagal pathways, shifting the body's chemistry in the direction of the next state. Whether that next state is alertness in the morning or rest at the end of a long day. A yawn appearing now would be a reliable sign, the body already moving in the direction of sleep, already beginning its own transition without being asked. There is an experience that comes with a truly complete exhale. Not a forced emptying, but a full and unhurried release, allowing the breath to travel all the way out, past the point where it would naturally stop, into the last quiet reserve of air. Something opens in the body when this happens, a sense of space that was not there before. Like a window being opened in a room that had been closed too long, the air inside shifting, freshening, becoming easier to inhabit. This is not a technique to be performed, just a possibility to be noticed. Available at any moment, in any breath. A single deep breath will not dissolve everything that has accumulated through a long or difficult day. and it was never meant to. But it can improve the next moment, and the moment after that, and in doing so, create slightly better conditions for the breath that follows. This is how breath works as a regulation tool, not through dramatic intervention, but through small, consistent shifts that accumulate quietly. Each breath a small act of tending, each exhale a gentle signal sent inward, each slow inhale a moment of replenishment. None of it requiring more than the breath itself, which is already here, already moving, already doing its quiet work. Of all the tools available for moving the nervous system toward ease, breath may be the most portable. It requires no equipment, no particular setting, no training or preparation. It is available in a difficult meeting, in the middle of a sleepless night, in the space between one moment and the next. Wherever the body is, the breath is there too, always present, always responsive, always capable of carrying a signal inward if one is offered. This is perhaps the simplest and most reassuring thing about it. No matter what the moment holds, the breath is already there. Already the bridge between where the nervous system is and where it is capable of going. There is nothing you need to do with any of this now. Just let the words become part of the breath itself, arriving with the inhale, releasing with the exhale. Each one carrying you a little further from the day, a little closer to the rest that is already forming. Somewhere just ahead, in the next breath, or the one after. Quietly and without effort, waiting to receive you. There is something the body has always known about sound. Something older than language, older than music as it is formally understood. That certain sounds, certain vibrations, can reach the nervous system in a way that almost nothing else can. Bypassing the thinking mind entirely, arriving somewhere deeper, somewhere more ancient, and shifting something there. Humming is one of the simplest expressions of this. A closed mouth, a steady tone, and the body begins to vibrate from within. The vagus nerve runs through the throat, branching into the muscles that produce the voice. And when those structures vibrate with sound, the nerve is stimulated directly, not metaphorically, but through actual physical contact with the vibration. A low, steady hum sends ripples of activation along vagal pathways, carrying a calming signal deeper into the system, into the heart, the lungs, the belly. This is why humming has appeared in contemplative traditions across cultures and across centuries. The body has always sensed what the science is now beginning to confirm. Singing and chanting work through a related but wider mechanism. The sustained tones of singing require a long and controlled exhale, which already activates the parasympathetic system through breath alone. But singing also adds rhythm, and rhythm adds something else entirely. A structure that the nervous system can follow, a predictable pattern it can settle into, rather than remaining in the effortful state of constant scanning and assessment. Chanting in particular combines breath, vibration, and repetition into something that the nervous system seems to find genuinely organizing. The body following the pattern, and in following it, releasing the need to generate its own. Closed-mouth humming has a quality that open-mouthed sound does not. The vibration has nowhere to escape. It moves inward instead, resonating through the bones of the face and skull, through the chest, through the soft structures of the throat. It is noticeable in a way that is difficult to describe but easy to feel. A warmth, a presence, a sense of the body being filled from within. Even a very quiet hum, barely audible, carries this quality, and the nervous system receives it as a signal of ease, of a body that is settled enough to make sound, safe enough to be present in its own vibration. Humming, sighing, yawning. These are often thought of as involuntary expressions of a passing state. But they are also tools, available to be gently invited rather than simply waited for. Each one activates similar pathways. Each one sends a signal through the vagus nerve that the nervous system interprets as a small reset. A brief interruption of the current pattern, a moment of return to something more open and more easy. They do not require a reason or a ritual. They simply require permission, the quiet allowing of what the body already knows how to do. The nervous system has a deep and largely unspoken preference for predictable rhythm, not the rigid sameness of something mechanical, but the living regularity of something that breathes and moves and returns. The rhythm of waves, of a rocking chair, of a heartbeat, of footsteps on a quiet path. These patterns ask very little of the nervous system. They require no interpretation, no assessment of novelty or threats. They simply arrive, and arrive again, and in their reliable return, something in the body settles. The scanning can ease, the vigilance can soften, the system can follow the rhythm rather than generate its own orientation toward the world. Rhythm reaches the nervous system as something close to permission. Permission to stop working so hard at the task of being alert. Rocking and swaying carry this quality in a particularly direct way. The gentle, repetitive movement of the body through space, backward and forward, side to side, is one of the earliest forms of comfort the nervous system ever receives. Long before language, long before any capacity for self-soothing through thought, the body was rocked, and it learned in that rocking what safety feels like. That learning does not disappear with childhood. It remains in the nervous system, available to be accessed whenever the rhythm returns. Even the subtle rocking that sometimes arises spontaneously in moments of distress is the body reaching for what it has always known works. The repetition itself is the medicine. There is a tendency to think that significant change requires significant intervention, that the nervous system can only be meaningfully shifted by something large, something dramatic, a long retreat, a profound experience, a complete overhaul of circumstances. But the nervous system does not work this way. It updates continuously, responding to each small signal as it arrives, adjusting in tiny increments that accumulate over time into something recognizable as change. A small rhythmic reset, repeated often, can outperform a large intervention that happens rarely, because it is the repetition that teaches, the accumulation that shifts the baseline, the patient returning again and again that builds the new pattern. The nervous system is always listening, always updating, always capable of being gently moved. Micro pauses matter because the nervous system never stops receiving information. A moment of stillness between tasks, a single slow breath taken before responding to something difficult, the brief closing of the eyes and the noticing of what the body is doing. These tiny interruptions of the ongoing stream of demand are not indulgences, they are inputs. Each one a small signal sent inward, saying, "This moment is not an emergency." The body can ease slightly. The alert can lower by one small degree. And one small degree is repeated across an entire day adds up to something the evening feels. Calm is rarely arrived at in one decisive moment. It is built slowly through the accumulation of small things done consistently. A breath here, a moment of stillness there, a hum in the throat on a quiet evening, a pause before the next demand arrives. None of these feel like much in isolation, and yet the nervous system is receiving every one of them, filing them away not as memories but as experience, as the slowly accumulating evidence that ease is possible, that the body knows how to find it, and that it is safe to return there again and again. There is nothing you need to do with any of this now. Just let the words settle like a low hum through the body, reaching places that thinking cannot quite touch. The rhythm of these words, the rhythm of the breath, the rhythm of the night itself. all of it moving in the same slow direction. And the nervous system, faithful as it has always been, following where the rhythm leads. Deeper, quieter, further into rest. The body was not designed for stillness. Not the prolonged, unbroken stillness of a life lived mostly seated, mostly static, mostly removed from the kind of movement the nervous system was built to expect. Movement has always been part of how the body understands itself, how it orients to the world around it, how it communicates to the nervous system that things are functioning as they should. And when movement is gentle, unhurried, offered without demand or urgency, it becomes something the nervous system reads not as effort, but as safety. A body that can move freely, that is not braced or frozen or held in place by alarm, is a body the nervous system recognizes as safe. And it responds to that recognition by easing its watch, softening its alertness, allowing the system to settle towards something quieter. Stretching brings several things together at once. The slow unfolding of a held position sends signals through the proprioceptive system, information about the body's position, its ease, its lack of threat or constraint. These signals travel inward along pathways that include the vagus nerve, arriving at the brain as a kind of physical report. This body is not braced. It is open. It is at ease. When breath is brought into the stretch, allowed to deepen and slow with the movement, the calming signal becomes stronger, more sustained. And when awareness is added, when attention rests in the sensation of the stretch rather than drifting into thought, something else occurs. The body becomes more present to itself, more anchored in the immediate experience of being here, and the abstraction of worry becomes harder to maintain. Stretching is not exercise in the conventional sense. It is conversation, the body speaking to the nervous system in a language of openness and ease. Walking offers something that stillness cannot. The alternating movement of the left and right sides of the body, the rhythm of steps, the gentle swaying of the arms. This bilateral rhythm has a particular quality that the nervous system seems to find organizing, each side of the body activating in turn, each stride a small, repetitive pattern the brain can follow without effort. Where the pace is unhurried and the attention rests in the body rather than the destination, combines rhythm, breath, and gentle proprioceptive input into something quietly regulating. The nervous system settles into the cadence, the scanning eases, the body moving through space with a steadiness that gradually becomes the felt sense of the moment. When the body has been activated, when stress has moved through the system and left it somewhere above its resting point, light movement can help complete what the stress response began. The stress response prepares the body for action, mobilizing energy, tensing muscles, accelerating the heart. And when that action never fully occurs, when the stressor was not one that could be physically met or fled, that mobilized energy can remain in the body, unspent, held as residual tension. Light movement gives the body a way to complete the cycle, to use what was mobilized, to discharge what was prepared and never released. And in completing the cycle, the nervous system can more fully return to its resting place. People who move regularly tend to recover from stress more efficiently. Not because movement prevents the stress response from occurring, but because it supports the body's ability to return from it. The transition back to baseline becomes smoother, faster, requiring less time and less effort. The body remembers through repetition that activation is not permanent, that there is always a way back, and movement helps write that memory into the system again and again. It is worth noting that not everyone finds stillness regulating. For some nervous systems, quiet sitting or lying still can actually increase a sense of unease. The absence of movement leaving the system without the input it needs to feel oriented and safe. For these people, gentle movement is not a distraction from regulation. It is the regulation. The body finding its settling, not in the absence of motion, but within it, in the rhythm and the flow and the continuous gentle feedback of a body moving through space. There is no single correct way for a nervous system to find its ease. The nervous system responds well to small, safe doses of change, not to being overwhelmed by intensity, not to being pushed through discomfort in the hope of arriving somewhere better on the other side, but to gentle increments, small shifts offered consistently, change that stays well within the window of what feels tolerable and even nourishing. This is why effective regulation practices tend to be brief, repeatable, and easy to return to. Not because depth doesn't matter, but because a practice that can be done for 2 minutes, many times a day, reaches the nervous system far more effectively than one that requires an hour and rarely happens. Frequency and gentleness outperform intensity and effort almost every time. A single shoulder roll, done slowly and with full awareness, can interrupt a stress loop that has been running unnoticed for an hour. A long exhale taken before responding to a difficult message can lower the reactivity of the response. These are not small consolations for people who cannot access larger practices. They are genuinely effective interventions. The nervous system does not require grand gestures. It requires consistent ones. And a shoulder roll can be a consistent one, repeated across an entire day, accumulating into something the evening body feels. The regulation tools that tend to work best over time are not the ones that feel like medicine. Not the ones that must be endured or pushed through or accomplished despite reluctance. But the ones that feel genuinely nourishing, that the body moves toward rather than away from, that leave something softer in their wake than what was there before. When a practice feels like relief, the nervous system is more likely to accept its signal, more likely to register it as safety rather than as one more demand in a day already full of them. The best tools are the ones that feel like coming home to the body rather than working on it from the outside. There is nothing you need to do with any of this now. The body is already still, already resting, already doing the quietest and most nourishing thing available to it in this moment. Let the words move through like a slow and gentle current, carrying nothing that requires effort, asking nothing that requires response. Just this, the body at rest, the breath moving, the night doing what nights have always done, tending quietly to everything that the day could not. There is a quiet truth about the nervous system that is easy to miss. That it is not fixed, not a static structure whose patterns were set early and cannot be touched, but a living system, responsive and malleable, capable of being gently shaped by the experiences it moves through. And the experiences that shape it most reliably are not always the large or dramatic ones. They are often the small ones, repeated quietly across days and weeks and months, until the pattern they carry becomes the pattern the nervous system expects. This is perhaps one of the most reassuring things that can be said about the nervous system. That change does not require a retreat or a revelation or a complete reorganization of a life. It can begin in the gaps that already exist, in the small, available moments that real life actually contains. A breath taken before getting out of the car, a moment of stillness before the next task begins, a brief noticing of the body's state in the space between one thing and the next. These tiny resets are not too small to matter. They are exactly the right size for a nervous system that updates continuously and responds to what it is consistently given. Small signals carry real weight. A single slow breath changes the chemistry of the blood, however slightly, however briefly. A moment of noticing the body shifts the activity of the nervous system, however gently, however incrementally. These are not imagined effects. They are measurable ones, small in scale but real in their influence. The nervous system does not discount a signal because it is small. It receives it and adjusts accordingly. Many small signals pointing toward ease begin to shift what the nervous system expects to find. There is a relationship between the state of the body and the quality of thought that is often underestimated. A calm body supports clearer thinking, not because the mind becomes more disciplined, but because the resources that stress diverts toward vigilance become available again for other purposes. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain most involved in considered and nuanced thinking, functions differently in a regulated body than in an alarmed one. Problems that seemed intractable in a state of high stress can appear more navigable when the body has settled. Not because the problems have changed, but because the instrument doing the thinking has. A settled body is a clearer lens through which to see the world. Difficult thoughts feel different in a settled body. The same thought that arrives in a tense and activated system can feel urgent and unresolvable and relentless. Arriving in a body that is calm and grounded, it may still be present, but its quality changes. It becomes something that can be held rather than something that holds you. Something that can be looked at rather than something that fills the entire field of vision. The thought has not changed, but the body receiving it has, and that changes everything about how it is experienced. When multiple safety signals arrive at the same time, something shifts that is greater than the sum of the parts. A slow breath taken while the body is warm and still, in a quiet and familiar room, with the weight of the bed beneath and the darkness around. Each of these is a signal on its own, but together they create a convergence, a chorus of evidence the nervous system finds difficult to argue with. The conclusion it draws from that chorus is not a thought. It is a state, a whole body settling that arrives when enough signals point in the same direction at the same time. This is what is happening right now, in this room, in this body, in this quiet. When small, regulating moments are repeated consistently, something begins to shift in the baseline. The nervous system's starting point, the level of alertness it returns to when nothing particular is demanding its attention, begins to move. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, towards something quieter, something closer to ease. Reactivity softens, not because difficult things stop occurring, but because the system is no longer starting each encounter from a place of already elevated alarm. There is more room between stimulus and response, more capacity to meet what arrives without being immediately overwhelmed. And this additional room, accumulated through many small moments of reset, is one of the quieter gifts of consistent practice. Rest is sometimes spoken of as though it were an absence, a pause in the real activity of living. But rest is active biology. The body during genuine rest is not doing nothing. It is consolidating memory, repairing tissue, regulating hormones, processing the emotional residue of the day, restoring the immune system to its full capacity. Rest is not laziness, it is maintenance. The body doing for itself what the active hours cannot accommodate. And allowing it, truly allowing it, is one of the most productive things a person can do. The nervous system learns through experience, not through instruction. Cannot be told to feel safe. It must be shown, repeatedly, through the accumulation of moments in which safety was actually present and actually felt. Each experience of genuine ease is a lesson received not by the thinking mind, but by the body itself. Filed away not as a memory, but as an expectation, a quiet updating of what the nervous system anticipates finding in the next moment. The body is capable of learning that protection does not always require alarm, that the system can be attentive without being braced, present without being vigilant, alive to the world without scanning it constantly for what might go wrong. This learning does not arrive as an insight. It arrives as a gradual shift in the body's default orientation toward the world. A softening that becomes the new normal, so slowly it is barely noticed, until one day the body simply feels different than it used to. Repeated gentle experiences, moments of ease returned to again and again, gradually show the nervous system a different possibility. Not through argument or effort, but through the patient accumulation of evidence. Evidence that the world contains safe places, that the body knows how to find them, and that it is allowed to rest in them without apology. This night is one of those places, and this moment, this breath, this quiet is one more small piece of evidence being received and carried forward into a nervous system that is slowly, gently learning a new way of being at ease in the world. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to remember. Only this, the body resting, the breath moving, the night doing its quiet and faithful work. And somewhere in the body, something settling a little more deeply than it did yesterday. There is a word that appears often in the science of nervous system health: resilience. Not toughness, not the absence of difficulty, not a life from which hard things have been removed, but the capacity to move through what is hard and to find the way back. To be moved without being permanently displaced, to bend without losing the knowledge of where center is. This is what a flexible nervous system makes possible, and it is what the body has been quietly moving toward through every chapter of this night. Somatic approaches to healing begin with a simple and profound recognition that the body is not just the place where healing happens to occur. It is an active participant in the healing itself. The body carries the history of what has been lived through, holds the patterns that experience has written into it, and it is also the place from which new patterns can be learned. Working with the body directly through breath and movement and sensation and stillness is not an alternative to healing. It is one of its most reliable pathways. And it requires no perfection, no arrival at some ideal state before the work can begin. It begins exactly where the body is, which is always exactly here. The goal of nervous system work is not perfection. Not a state in which difficult things are never felt, in which the stress response never fires, in which the body moves through the world entirely undisturbed by what the world contains. That is not resilience, that is numbness, and they are not the same thing. Resilience includes the full range, the capacity to feel what is genuinely difficult, and to trust that the feeling will move, that the body will find its way back, that the baseline is always there, waiting. The goal is not to feel less, it is to move more freely through what is felt. One of the quieter gifts of regulation is the gift of choice. When the nervous system is dysregulated, responses tend to be automatic, immediate, driven more by the body's current state than by any considered intention. A harsh word arrives and the response is already forming before any choice has been made. A difficult situation, and the body has already braced before the thinking mind has fully assessed what is happening. Regulation does not eliminate these responses, but it creates space around them. A small but real pause between what arrives and what follows, in which something like choice becomes possible. Not the forced choice of suppression, but the genuine choice of a system that is regulated enough to respond, rather than simply react. Body-based healing works best when it is safe and repeatable. Not because intensity has no place, but because the nervous system learns through consistent, gentle experience more reliably than through occasional powerful ones. A practice that can be returned to daily, that feels accessible rather than demanding, that leaves the body a little softer than it found it. This kind of practice accumulates into something the nervous system trusts, something it begins to anticipate, to move toward, before the practice has even fully begun. Safety and repeatability are not limitations. They are the conditions under which real and lasting change becomes possible. Sensation, breath, movement, digestion, mood. These are not separate categories of experience belonging to separate systems. They are expressions of one system, connected at every level, in constant conversation with each other. A shift in the breath changes the mood. A shift in the mood changes the digestion. A shift in the digestion changes the quality of sensation, and sensation shapes the breath that follows. The system is circular, self-influencing, always feeding back into itself. Which means that an entry point anywhere, a slow breath, a gentle stretch, a moment of noticing, can ripple through the whole. There is no part of the system too small to matter, and no starting place that is wrong. Healing is sometimes imagined as something that moves only from the top down. The mind deciding to change, generating the insight or the intention, and the body following obediently behind. But healing moves in both directions, and often the body leads. A shift in posture that precedes a shift in mood, a slow breath that arrives before the thought of calming has formed, a release of tension in the shoulders that opens something in the emotional landscape. The body has its own intelligence, its own momentum toward ease, when the conditions allow it. And working with that intelligence, rather than waiting for the mind to lead, is one of the most direct paths available. A reset is not the shutting off of emotion. It is not the suppression of what is difficult, not the bypassing of experience in favor of a forced and brittle calm. A genuine reset is something gentler and more useful than that. It is the body settling enough, becoming regulated enough, that experience can actually be processed rather than simply endured. Emotion that arrives in a dysregulated system tends to overwhelm, to flood, to stay longer than it needs to, because the system cannot metabolize it. Emotion that arrives in a settled body can be felt fully, can move through, can complete itself and release. A reset creates the conditions for that completion. It does not prevent feeling, it makes feeling more possible. The nervous system is capable of becoming more adaptable over time. Not through willpower, not through discipline alone, but through the patient accumulation of experiences that show it something different from what it has known. Each regulated moment is a data point. Each gentle reset, a small lesson. Each night of genuine rest, a contribution to a nervous system that is slowly, reliably expanding its range. Becoming capable of more, not because it has been pushed harder, but because it has been tended more carefully. And new patterns of safety and ease are not just possible. They are the natural destination of a system that has been given what it needs. The body does not hold onto old patterns out of stubbornness. It holds onto them because they were once the best available response. And when better responses become available, when the evidence accumulates that ease is safe and rest is permitted, and the world contains places of genuine safety, the body begins to update slowly, in the way that all deep learning happens, below the level of intention, in the quiet biology of repeated experience. This is what has been happening tonight, across every chapter, every breath, every word that drifted past without needing to be held. The nervous system receiving its evidence, updating its picture of the world, learning in the only way it truly learns. Through experience, through repetition, through the patient offering of conditions in which ease is not just possible, but inevitable. There is nothing left to do now, nothing to understand or remember or hold on to. Just this body, this breath, this quiet room, this night that has been tending to you all along. The nervous system is already doing what it was always capable of doing, finding its way back to flexibility, to ease, to the deep and faithful rest that has been waiting here all along. And so we come to the end of this journey, but the work continues. Even as these words fade, your body carries on, settling, restoring, tending quietly to itself. You've traveled tonight through the hidden world of your own nervous system. How the body is always listening, always scanning, always doing its quiet and faithful work. How the signals moving through you right now are already creating the conditions for rest. But you don't need to hold on to any of this. Let it all go. Let the knowledge drift into the background, where it can do its quiet work. Your only task now is to rest, to sink deeper into sleep, to trust the process that is already unfolding. Each breath slower, softer. Each thought fading, dissolving. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just this peaceful darkness, this gentle surrender. Your nervous system knows what to do. It has been doing this your entire life. And tonight, it continues. So rest now. Let go completely and sleep. Deep, restorative, and deeply safe sleep. Good night.